Hey guys, welcome to part 2 of Becoming a Mom. So if you haven't seen part 1, make sure y'all check it out. I go into great detail about my pregnancy and things like that. But if you haven't, I'm going to recap right now. So I got pregnant. I decided to go the midwife route because I wanted a holistic, unmedicated vaginal birth in a very relaxed, soothing atmosphere. We took centering, and in addition, we did a few other classes to prepare. In the end, my due date came and went, and my son just decided he was too comfortable to be bothered. So after speaking to my medical team, we decided that if my labor hadn't started by the end of that week, they would schedule me for an induction as soon as possible, and that ended up being the next Friday. So when I went in, I was 41 weeks and 3 days. And yeah, so that's where we're starting today. So we were scheduled to go in that day at 3:30 in the afternoon. And after registry and getting my IV poured in and all that good stuff, everything basically kicked off around about 5 p.m. I had the best midwife. She was one of the ones that I liked. So I was excited to see her, and she was just so cool. So it was a good time getting started. She decided that she wanted to get me started with the Foley bulb method. It's basically a tool to help you dilate, and in addition to the tool that's used to manually help you dilate, they also give you a pill, which is to induce contractions and dilating and everything. And I hated it. I hated every minute of it. It lasted for, like, that whole process took probably about 5 hours. I know that it was like, it might have been 7 hours because it just felt like it was either really, really late at night or really like early morning. But there was a lot going on in that time, so I cannot be 100%. But all I know is I went from inactive labor to basically transition in about 30 minutes. And when I say that, like, it was extremely painful. I was nauseous, I was vomiting, there was a lot of bleeding, and I don't know if it was our wonky thermostat or if it was just me, but I went through a bout of chills and hot flashes. Oh my gosh, and that our thermostat in my labor room was ridiculous. Like, if you didn't have it right where it needed to be, like, you were screwed. You were either cold or burning up. So, yeah, that didn't help either. But it was a hard time. Like, I was just over it. Like, every time they came in to check me, I was like, am I done with this? Am I done with this? Like, I want this to be over. And so finally, the very last check that they did when I had that going on, they said, okay, if you're at least 3.5 to 4 centimeters, we will remove it and we will start you on Pitocin tomorrow. And I was like, please. Like, I prayed the whole time they were checking me. And by the grace of God, I was 3.5 centimeters, and I was like, yes, get this thing up out because I'm done. And that's what they did. They took it out, and so they let me rest the rest of the night, and I slept so good. Like, I was so exhausted. It was a hard time that first night, and so I slept really good. And then the next morning, I woke to the only midwife at my practice that I looked at my husband at centering, and I told him, I was like, I do not want her. Like I don't care who we get, please just don't let her be the one at the hospital when it's time, you know. And she ended up being there on day 2. And so she came in, and she was nice enough, but we just didn't vibe. I just felt like it was a bit of a weird energy between us, and I just didn't like it. And so, and she also stayed away a lot. Like, it was almost like being with a doctor, in my opinion. She came, checked in, stayed for a couple of minutes, she was gone. And I was fine with that because I really didn't want her around anyway. And she got me started on the Pitocin. And that next day, you know, we walked the halls of the unit. And, you know, I did my exercises on my yoga ball, and I did everything, you know, all my different positions that I had learned to try to get my son to work down into position and maybe, you know, help me keep dilating and things like that. And I contracted a bit that day, nothing too crazy, but I did end up contracting a bit. And then things got a little stronger later on in the evening, and so, and throughout the day, they kind of turn up the Pitocin, especially if they check you and nothing's really happening. And I was still at 3.5, 4 centimeters all through that day. And so they turned up the Pitocin a little bit, and so I ended up getting some intravenous meds in my port, and that ended up putting me to sleep. And this is another reason why I was not feeling that midwife. No one discussed anything with me when I went to sleep, right? I just got my IV drugs and I was out, right? I knew I was still on Pitocin, but it was like, whatever. I woke up to the absolute worst pain I have ever felt in my life. And it was excruciating. Like, I woke up and I saw the IV port and it had that little box with all these numbers. And I was like, I'm like, why is that number so high? You know, and I called to my husband, I'm like, honey, I need help. Like, I couldn't even sit up. Like, it was crazy. Like, I felt like somebody was kicking me in my side. Like, a grown person with Timberland boots was stomping me in my side. That's what I'm saying, okay? It was terrible. And so I said, why is that number so high? And he's like, oh, well, the midwife said that she was going to turn it up while you were out so that they can get the best result. Like, you can, you know, really benefit from it while you're not feeling the intense pain of it. I'm like, no, someone should have said something to me so I could be prepared. You know what I'm saying? Because that was just unacceptable to me. I wasn't feeling that at all. And so we called her in, and I was just not happy at all. Like, I was in a pissy mood after that. And it just kept getting worse. It was just getting worse and worse and worse. And so I finally looked at my husband, and I was like, dude, fireworks. And he was like, honey, I was like, I said the word. I mean it. I want that shot right now. And he was like, you don't need it. Baby, you got it. Just breathe. I was like, fireworks. I'm done. I've had enough. And by that time, I had been there. It was probably about 4 o'clock in the morning. I had been there about 30 hours. You know what I'm saying? Like, I had enough. It was long enough. Okay? So, yeah, they prepped me for the epidural. Of course, my overeager husband, you know, he read through the whole waiver sheet. I was like, you do that. I'm gonna talk to them about what they're about to do. And so he read it, and then he looked at me, and he was like, honey, are you sure you want to do this? Like, your chances of becoming paralyzed from this shot are greater than if you had a motorcycle accident. And I looked him dead in the eyes, snatched that paper and that pen out of his hand, and signed my name on the dotted line. I did not care at that point. I was like, it's fine, just take it. And I handed it to the nurse, and they told me to sit on the edge of, you know, on the side of the bed, and he stood in front of me. And then the midwife came between us, and she's like, okay, we'll do forehead to forehead. And I was like, I'm going to put my head on his shoulder, and I'm going to get this shot. And apparently I said some other things, because when I lifted my head back up from my husband's shoulder, the room was basically cleared out. It was a nurse and the anesthesiologist still there. The midwife and her partner or whatever that was there, they were gone. Okay? So apparently my attitude was too much for folks. But I was at a place, I wasn't happy with the treatment that I was getting, or, you know, what was chosen for me. And it had been a long experience. So I was just over it. And so after I got that epidural, you know, of course they have to give you a catheter, and then I went to sleep. And I slept so good for like 5 hours, because the next morning around about 9 o'clock, my original midwife came back, and I was so happy to see her, until I realized she was coming in with a surgeon. And that's when I knew that my biggest fear that plagued me the last couple of months of my pregnancy was coming into view. And I wasn't happy about it. We talked about the option of a possible cesarean, and throughout the conversation they stayed encouraging of what I've been doing and how hard I worked to try to get him, you know, get him here the way I wanted to get him here. And then they told me that the night before his heart rate dropped, and it was a done deal. Like, I didn't have to hear anything else. I had made my mind up before they even left us to discuss, because as soon as that door closed, I looked at my husband. I was like, so we're getting the room, right? And he was like, what? I was like, we're getting the room. I said, this is not becoming an emergency situation. I would love for my son to just be here. I'm ready to meet him. I'm ready to be done. I'm tired. I know you're tired. We've been here. This will be day 3 if we go any longer. Like, this has to end at some point. I was like, I know it's not what I wanted, but I guess this is our only option. And, you know, of course, my husband being him, he supported it. He was like, all right, I mean, that's what we're doing. And I immediately broke down crying. I was like, I didn't want it to be like this. And, you know, he just held me and just like, it's okay. You know, you did your thing. He was like, you did really good. Because, like I said, I didn't get the epidural until 5 hours before that whole conversation happened. Like, I was in that joint straight beast mode. Okay, like it was hard, but we called them back in and we let them know we were gonna do it. And they were like, okay, we got someone in right now, but after we're done and we get it all cleaned up, we will get you in. And they went over the whole protocol for how they were going to take me, have my husband change, bring him in later, all that good stuff. And that was the first, so that was the only uncertain moment that I had, when I had to leave my husband behind and go by myself. And I'm with people who, yes, I'm familiar with them. You know, my midwife, I was familiar with her, but I really didn't know the surgeon. I didn't know the anesthesiologist that was there for the morning. There was a plethora of nurses that I had not yet been introduced to, and I'm in there by myself, and I'm about to have I've had my tonsils out, but this was my first major surgery with my very first child, and I was scared to death. I was just like, oh my goodness. And I'm there by myself. My lifeline was down the hall, you know, like, and so I was just so nervous the whole time. And then as soon as he came in, like, all that fear it was still a little bit there because it's major surgery, but that uncertainty of, oh my gosh, I'm in this by myself, was gone, you know. And he just sat next to me and he started talking to me, and he took my mind off of what was going on behind the curtain. And yeah, they turned on some 90s hip hop for me. I was like, what do you like to listen to? And they played some music, and we took bets on how big we thought the baby was going to be. And, you know, it just became a very light environment. It was really good. It was really nice. And so from the time they started until the time he was out, what was it, like 15 minutes or something? Like, he was out really quick. And, of course, my biggest fear that I did not want to happen that ended up happening was that he had meconium on the way out. And I did not want that. That's why I was kind of like speaking with the midwives in my practice, you know, before it got to that point of, okay, I'm super far out from my due date, you know, what are we going to do? Because I didn't want him to have the meconium because of things that I had read about how it can affect the child later on if it is ingested, and if it does somehow get into their system. And so, yeah, I just heard someone say, we got meconium. And then before I knew it, he just let out this really hard cry. And when he cried, I bawled. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh. And I looked at my husband, I was like, he's here. And he was like, he's here. And then he said, do you want me to stay with you? You want me to go? I was like, go check on the baby, go. And he went and he got to see him and he took pictures. And then they started to, you know, do everything they had to do. And while they're sewing me up, I started to feel it. And so I asked, I was like, oh, excuse me, am I supposed to feel that? And they were like, you feel this? I was like, yeah. And they were like, hold on. And they did another one. They were like, you feel it? I was like, yep, I felt that. And they were like, okay. So they said, let's pump up her IV. And so they gave me whatever in the IV. They stopped for a couple of minutes, let it kind of get through, and then they tried again. I was like, yep, I still feel that. So then they pumped up my epidural. Gave it a few minutes. And they were like, and then they went again. I was like, okay, I'm still feeling this. I was like, it's not excruciatingly painful. I was like, but I still feel it. And so they were like, okay, we're going to have to give you NOS. And so they put the NOS mask on me and basically knocked me out for the rest of the time it took them to sew me back up. And my husband has filled me in on it, but he was like, yeah, they put that mask on you and you just started snoring. He was like, you were out. So I guess I snored through them sewing me up, and then they brought me back, and when they brought me back, basically the room was cleared out. There was a couple of nurses still doing cleanup and stuff, and my midwife and my surgeon were there, and my anesthesiologist. And, you know, I was kind of in and out. And then after they were done, they wheeled me into recovery, and my husband was there doing skin to skin with my son. And it was like I fell in love with him all over again. Because my husband, okay, is not a soft man. He's not that kind of guy. And he really does not like other people's children. So I had never seen how he would be with a child before now. And when I saw him, you know, smelling his son's hair and just holding him on his chest, and it was a beautiful sight, you know. And then I had to be my ignorant self and be like, can I hold my child? Because I hadn't seen him yet. Like, when they took him out, I guess because of the meconium, they instantly took him to the side and started cleaning him off. And then I was knocked out. So I guess that usual time after they clean him up and wrap him up and bring him to you, they didn't do that for me. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, can I see my baby? And he was like, I've only been with him for like 5 minutes for real. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Let me see my son. Like, if I had to carry him and get cut open to have him, guess what? I get first dibs. Bring him over. And so he did, and I immediately offered the breast because I knew that I wanted to breastfeed, and so I immediately offered him the breast, and we weren't that instant latch couple. We weren't that, okay? So he did a little bit, and in the beginning it's not super painful because, yeah, you don't really know what's going on, and then your breast hasn't been through the ringer of being latched onto incorrectly or anything like that. So it wasn't terrible the very first time we did it, but he latched just a little bit, and then I just held him for a minute, and then my parents came in and saw him, and yeah. It was a great day. But yeah, that was that. Then he was born at like 10:39 in the morning, so we had all day to just be with him, you know. And I couldn't sleep. Like all I wanted to do was just stare at him, and all he did was sleep. he was so exhausted for somebody that hadn't been doing anything for 9 months. But when they got us into the recovery room, oh my goodness, like we were just like, what the what? Like it was so different from the labor and delivery room, because labor and delivery room was huge. And then of course we put our little touch on it. We had our little Christmas lights. We had a string of white and a string of blue because we were having a boy. And we put those up so we didn't have to have those big hospital lights on. And I had my little oil vaporizer in the corner, blowing out my lavender. So I was so relaxed and everything. It was nice and it was huge. And they had this this couch that pulled out into like a bed, kind of like a futon. And then we get into the recovery room. It's like, what, like a third of the labor and delivery room. The bathroom was tiny, and they didn't have a couch. They had like this little, it was like an old 70s recliner type chair. It was super small and skinny, and it was uncomfortable. My husband's made the joke, like, next time, you know, he's going to bring like a camping, a little camping cot for the recovery room, because that thing was ridiculous. Like, it was a couple of times where, you know, when I finally was up and moving, I offered him my bed. I was like, you want to lay on my bed? Like, I'll go for a walk or something with the baby. You sit down, take a nap or something. But, you know, our staff was awesome. Like, anything we needed, they made sure we were good. And, like, everybody just wanted to see my son. Apparently, he's so cute. So everybody was like, we want to see him, we want to see him. We were having nurses, like, basically in the back, just talking about, yeah, I got them today. No, I have them today. So I guess we weren't that bad for them. We tried to be as low maintenance as possible. But yeah, it wasn't a terrible experience. It was just long as all get out, okay? But yeah, 35 hours and a very unexpected ending with the C-section. But at the end of the day, it got me my baby, and we both came through happy and healthy, and I haven't had any issues. He hasn't had any issues. The only thing that saddened me, and I'm not even really upset about it anymore, because, you know, every birth story is different, and even if it's not exactly what you want, it's still just as special. But I was saddened because there were things I wanted to do, like the delayed clamping, and to see if he would, you know, kind of move himself up to my chest, you know, and to be able to bring him into this world on my own. You know, those few things were things that I kind of wanted, you know, but it doesn't mean that the experience wasn't any less beautiful, and I wouldn't change anything, because at the end of the day, we're here. We're happy, we're healthy, we're good. So just keep that in mind when you have your experience, or if you felt your experience was one way over another, you know, you're here. And your child is here. And life, even though it's probably hard as hell, it's still good. So, that said, I'm going to go ahead and end this now. I thank y'all so much for joining me, and I hope y'all come back again. Make sure that you go ahead and like this video and subscribe, and make sure you like me on Facebook at ImPerfectly Crushing It, and you can go ahead and follow me on Instagram at ImPerfectly_crushing_it.
see y'all next time.